right. My name's Matt Lindsay, and I am the founder and CEO of heirVault. And heirVault is an estate and legacy assessments, knowledge, and coaching service that's all web-based. And when I meet with a group of people, or I'm out and about talking to individuals, I like to kind of start it from a unique perspective, and that's with a unique question that all of us in this room can typically answer. And that's specifically, what would the next year look like for the ones you love if you were to die today? And it's a pretty harsh statement, or harsh question, but when you think about it and you really spend the time kind of specifically, right, thinking about what would happen, that's really what heirVault's all about. And are you prepared to suddenly die, or to even slowly die, but to have all of your affairs in place? So for the people that are truly prepared, and I'm talking to them, there's a sense of warmth and contentment that kind of comes over them, and then I usually proceed to ask them how they did it, right? And they explain that they found an estate planner, and they were able to get their will, their trust, their power of attorney done, their health directives, those types of things. And then we usually exchange a high five. And for the people who aren't prepared, you can kind of see their stomach turns a little bit, they may blush a little bit, and it's just this kind of uncomfortable feeling that comes over you, especially as a parent, when you realize that that's just something that you haven't done yet. You're putting it off for one reason or another. You make some standard excuses. You may say, I don't have enough assets, I'm not that old, I'm only, I'm personally 49. Is 49 too young to actually have an estate plan? People are always thinking about these things. Taxes, forced process every year, gotta do them. Estate plan, it's optional. But regardless of how a person reacts to that question, they always begin to tell a story. 90% of the time, they always end up telling me a story, and probably a lot of you in this room could jump into some story about maybe your parents passing, or secondhand stories about other people passing. Hundreds of hours spent handling a person's post-life proceedings, papers, accounts, money, belongings, taxes, relationships, pets, the list goes on. There's so much involved with dealing with the death of another person. And so again, that's what heirVault's all about. There's stories about faulty wills, trusts, powers of attorney, beneficiary designations. And these are people who actually took the steps to plan, but the documents were faulty in some sort of a way, maybe in minor ways, maybe completely. And finally, there's stories about family infighting, people not being able to get along after the passing of their parents, lawsuits, court appearances, and ultimately hurt feelings. And finally, massive amounts of money wasted, and time wasted. And I think that's really the big crux of it, is that you imagine a $250,000 estate, and $100,000 is spent going to attorneys. So I want to share a couple pertinent statistics with you. Over 55% of people over 50 do not have an estate plan. And the source of this, and this particular one, you can find that stat all over the internet. But more people are not prepared than are prepared. So when we think about market segment and who heirVault's chasing after, it's that 55%. Another key statistic, over the next 30 years, over $30 trillion are going to change hands just from the baby boomers. And the baby boomers are people born between 1946 and 1964. And those people have already started to transfer that $30 trillion. And we think of that, that's not 30 million, not 30 billion, that's $30 trillion, right? So big number there. And another key statistic, in 2015, last year, there was 14% of Americans, approximately 46 million people, were over the age of 65. And when we look out another 15 years from that, 2029, 20% of Americans, approximately 72 million people, are going to be over the age of 65. So our population in the United States, the population of the world, is aging, and we're going to see a big transition over the next several years. And then finally, this one's kind of a little bit of offbeat, but I think this kind of goes towards the people who are feeling like they're invincible and ironclad, but every 4 minutes an accidental death occurs in the United States, right? So, I mean, we all know people who have died suddenly. I mean, we'd be hard pressed if anybody in this room doesn't know somebody, but the whole point is just that it could happen to any of us, right? So we've got to be prepared. So again, so in summary, the US world population is aging and dying at a significantly rapid pace. Tens of millions of people are not functionally prepared to die, right? And emotionally is a whole nother story, but just functionally, all your papers, are you organized, etc. Estate procrastinators are more common than estate planners, right? So people who are putting it off are more common than people who have taken care of it. And finally, that $30 trillion in the next 30 years is really a big component of what heirVault's all about. So the heirVault vision, and I'll get to the solution here real quickly, but the vision of heirVault is relative to a person's estate and legacy. Is first, we're assessing a person's standing relative to what they want to do with their estate and legacy. We're providing quantified results through an heirVault score, a trackable plan of action through an heirVault dashboard, which is really a scoreboard for a person to keep track of their activities, solid tools to achieve specific goals, variable knowledge opportunities. So variable just meaning it's different and relative to a person's needs. And we're targeting, the vision is to also save people significant time and money and deliver motivation and peace of mind. And I just said RC is Resource Center, and we'll talk about that here next. So the simple solution is take assessment, receive score and report. Once you're done with that, you create an account. Then you're able to track your your progress through the dashboard, and then finally learn and conquer through our knowledge centers. And so this is a lay of the land at the next level. So there's 10 modules within heirVault, and they range from phase 1 control modules, right, where we're talking about the important documents in your life, which there's actually hundreds of them. And one of the things I want to point out before I go through this list is you'll see in each one of there's a workbook, right? And I have those workbooks here. Any of you could, if you want, you can look at these after. If any of you are interested, if you give me your email address, a business card, and you want to have access to these, download them, print them, use them. They're in final form. Give me your address. I'll give you access to them in my Google Drive. But we're talking important documents, your financial position, digital estate, which I think most of you know what your digital estate is. It's all your email, your online accounts, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, everything that you could think of. It's a very long list of things. I mean, I don't know how many accounts you have, but I personally have over 100. And they just build up and you don't recognize it until you list it all out. But it's important to track those. And then your advanced circumstances, which I won't get into that right now, but that's like, are you married, do you have kids, are you divorced, widowed, etc. And then once you have these things done, then you can go and you can deal with your estate and your other professionals. Your estate plan and your estate planner, there's a workbook on that. There's also all of your other professionals, CPA, financial planner, life insurance, etc. And then finally, once you have your will, your trust, your power of attorney, and your health directives done, then you can look into doing stuff with your post-life directives. Your funeral. What do you want to have done with your body? Do you want to donate it to science? All the things that kind of go into that first month after you pass away, but you could set that up for your family rather than them trying to scramble around and make tough decisions. Telling your life story. If you have kids, you may have always meant to tell your life story to your children. various parts of it from different angles, but this breaks it down and allows you to pick from like 450 different questions per life story. Your family history broken down into genealogy and family heritage, and then finally communicating all this to your family. So this is the overall solution, and it comes in the form of assessment. You get a report, you use a dashboard, you have the planners, and then there's a curated resource center. Current status and next steps. heirVault was conceived in 2006. It was officially founded in 2014, and since the beginning, there's been approximately 3 pivots, one major one, but I say 3 because there's always little things that are changing and moving. Really the latest version of it we've been working on for 6 months. And the good news is, and part of the reason when Laura called me last week to do this, I was like, I think it's time for me to get back out there. I haven't done any presentations recently. I haven't been out talking to people or giving any pitches. And so December 1st, we're shooting for the first week of December. We're doing our V2 release. It's going to be free for your email address, and the planners will be there, plus the curated resource center, which basically are those 10 modules, and there's tools that we've created internally. There's tools that we reference on other places in the internet. There's definitely articles, books, different software services that are out there. It's all, for each one of those 10 modules, it's all laid out. Did I just hit that? It's all laid out in a convenient way, right? So if you've ever accessed curated resources, right, it's basically like all laid out for you, right? You do that a little bit in your Google News feeds or Yahoo News feeds, but in this form, it's all about estate and legacy planning. So that's the way I learned to get all my stuff done. So that was what I felt other people would be interested in being able to access as well.
Matt?
Yes. Are we done? Okay. So that's fine. So version 3 would be 2017. We're 100% bootstrapped at this point. We're going to be seeking funding in 2017. Primary market, parents 35 and over with a net worth greater than $100,000. There is competition, those companies out there. The issues that we're having, is just motivation and trust of customers, except number 2 is just the acceptance of HR benefit concept. The real big hit of what we're going to try to do is sell this as a human resource benefit to companies. And I can answer more about that in the Q&A. And then also just the challenge of delegation and not trying to put too much work on my shoulders or the other people that are involved in heirVault. And I think the first question you're going to ask is just the help that I need. Number 1, we're going to need users, and we're going to need people to help us just kind of go through the paces and make sure that it makes sense, that it's helpful to people, and that there's no bugs in the system. So that's going to come up in the first week of December. Reviewing the planners, need help doing that. I've already have a lot of people doing it, but the more the better. Help with word of mouth, and then finally any and all feedback and ideas. And that's it.
So you already answered the question, so fire away.
So when I first found out about your company, I was super intrigued about the digital asset management, about what happens if you die, who has your Facebook page, who has Twitter, that sort of thing. Is that something, I saw it's still in there, but is that something that you get much traction with, or is it just interesting to people like me who live on social media?
Well, I think with all 10 of the heirVault modules, right, there's going to be certain things that are attractive to various people. But I think that's definitely one of the more attractive ones to people. And really the planner is basically just inventory your stuff, and inventory what you want to have done with your stuff, right? And it is, it's a great conversation, and it's one of those, one of the things I love about heirVault is that I can talk about this when I go out and have a beer with the guys, right? It's like, you just ask somebody about estate planning, next thing you know, like an hour's gone by and there's endless things to talk about. Most people are willing to talk about it. But the digital estate planning is certainly one of the more attractive pieces, as is the estate planning piece of it as well.
Hey, so Matt's a neighbor and a good friend of mine, so it's been or heard about this since the very beginning. But have you ever thought about it in terms of with the genealogy piece of it, creating strategic partnerships, paid partnerships with like 23andMe?
Yeah, no,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that a big part of the first half of 2017 are going to be taking on the gigantic list of partnerships that I've established and built up over time. I mean, it's everything from 23andMe to potentially LegalZoom,
Mhm.
to every big financial planning company that's out there, using some of these as a white labeled set of tools.
Yeah, because I think
But,
more
yeah.
resources you can give them easy access to without
Yeah.
them having to then, because again, the topic, it makes a lot of people squirm. You know, they might have a lot of
Oh,
questions,
yeah.
but it's not something they want to hover on for a long period of time. And the more you can keep it all under one hood and
Mhm.
just a click away from them, you know,
Yeah,
from
yeah,
your
yeah.
site, the more engagement you're going to get.
Well, there is in the Resource Center right now, without them even giving me permission, I have click-throughs to 23andMe and click-throughs to Ancestry.com, click-throughs to, I mean.
You got to
a
get paid
lot.
for those click-throughs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I know. That's the next step for sure.
Cool, nice, good.
Along the lines of partners, are you seeking like attorneys, financial planners, or is this more a self-assessment, do it on your own type?
So, yeah, no, great question, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Estate planners, financial planners, life insurance people, CPAs. I'm not going to necessarily try to one-off those as partners. It isn't going to be the initial focus, but just as a result of doing this for the last couple of years, I've come into contact with probably 20 estate planning attorneys, and I know a lot of financial planners, and they're all interested in seeing, once we release in December, like sitting down and talking about how it might be able to help them build their customer base. So we got two options. They could use it to they could give it to their customers, right? Or they could advertise on heirVault. So we're looking at both of those for sure.
So
Come to this side.
What's the charge for heirVault?
So it was on the other slide, but so the monetary version of it, which is going to come out in December in Q1, we're targeting $99 for the initiation year, and then $49 a year after that. Estate planning, and especially telling your life story or your family heritage, doing genealogy, it's a lifetime commitment. This isn't like we just do it all in a couple weeks and we're done and move on with our life, right? It's something that you always have to be paying attention to. So those maintenance years, that $49 a year, the way we came up with that is that we've looked at the competition. There's some that are real bigger than others, but they're all like in that $100 a year range. There's a part of me that thinks, the true value of this, if someone's to use it and kind of live the heirVault lifestyle, as we like to call it, I mean, $300 a year is probably reasonable as well. And I listen to podcasts and stuff, and they say, don't underprice it. So I'm always thinking about that and trying to decide.
So if you were to sell it to a financial planner who has like 100 or 1,000, I don't know how many clients, are you thinking of giving them a discount on okay, so that answers
Absolutely.
that question.
And the same thing goes with it as a human resource benefit, right? If I sell this to the California Highway Patrol, right, and they want to have it available for all of their officers, and there's I don't know how, I think there's like 25,000 of them, then definitely, I mean, $19 a year per user. Just as an example, I mean, it's going to be negotiation
Right.
per
And-
company or per firm.
And does the software allow do you in the software alert customers to update? So like my will and estate planning has to be updated every 5 to 6 years or
Yep.
something like that. So.
Well, yeah, and it's
And I
so
can check my life
so there's
beneficiaries.
there's going to be a whole reminder infrastructure in the background. So if you you sign up on December 1st, you'll get a monthly reminder checklist of things to do, things to think about, and then a yearly one as well. So you'll always be able to you'll check on your will, your estate, your power of attorney, and all of those things. And so, yeah, I mean, the answer is the reminder scheme is definitely part of it.
I have one comment and two questions. My comment is, you've mentioned a lot of different potential business models, from, HR benefit to white labeling to even some one-off stuff, and there's a lot of different avenues you can go in terms of getting this out to the people.
Mm-hmm.
My suggestion would be to pick one and go all in on one until a point where it either works or it doesn't. Then try the next one, just to try to focus it in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would include some of that stuff in the presentations, like here are the 3 different models we're exploring. Maybe ask for feedback from the audience in these situations. So that was my comment. My 2 questions are, it sounds like this is a data intensive activity, right? I've done some estate planning, and I'm probably maybe ahead of the curve for someone my age, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet. I haven't seen even half of it, and already it just feels like I'm always updating information. Have you thought about ways to make that process easier, especially on the digital asset side? I know with my parents, for example, I have all my parents' business passwords, all
Mm-hmm.
of that stuff stored, but I'm constantly trying to get that information. So that leads to my third question is, how do you know when to disseminate the data, and how do you make sure that stuff is secure? So loaded questions, I guess, but have fun.
You have an hour.
So the first part is, I have a social media and email marketing plan. So that one-off marketing and sales, that's just kind of gonna get tossed out there and take care of itself. As far as the sales team goes, that's focused on being a human resource benefit. Got it. And those are the 2 that we're doing, and then, there's a whole list of other opportunities there. The white labeling, that's down.
The comment was more put that in the presentation.
So as far as, there was a problem in the beginning. This is a big part of the pivot that we did maybe a year and a half ago. People were and it's one of the problems is that trust. They have to trust us to put this kind of information online, right? We aren't QuickBooks, right? We aren't Intuit. We aren't LegalZoom, right? So how do you get to that place, right? So we decided, well, instead of doing it all online, we'll do it in planners initially, so people can download them, do these planners. They're all workbooks, really. I mean, it isn't just informational. And then you can put it into a safe, and you can communicate it to your family. So it's manual on those, but we can also convert all this into digital and do it all online. In fact, I wrote all the specifications for that and had issues with getting enough development power, right? And so it was well, this is easy. I can do this on my own and not have to rely on developers. So we sort of just flipped the cart and said, well, we'll do the manual version of it, and then we'll slowly do the digital version of it. And we'll start with digital asset planning is a great place to start. But if you were to look at these and use these, you'd see a pretty logical path in how to make it digitized. And answer your question.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just as a quick follow-on comment, I'm most interested about automating as much as I can on the digital front, and I'm obviously in the.
Well, these are.
I'm an very early millennial, but I feel that a lot of people.
I say I have hard copy. They're still digital. They're PDFs. They're all forms. So you fill them all out.
I don't want to have to go and rewrite that every time something changes. The thing that interests me most is the ability to be I link up my Facebook page, for example, and that when my password updates.
Right.
So that at some point in the future.
Well, there's a recommend. I to build that. That's like a company in itself, right? And Intuit, Intel has I use TrueKey from Intel. It's that's a whole.
Well, I have a password manager too.
Yeah.
I usually just give the master password, right? But at that point, I'm really trusting you.
Yeah.
Because you have all 1,000 passwords I have.
that's a little off topic, we can
Yeah,
talk
sure.
about it offline, but I have a lot of thoughts.
We'll come back to that. Moving
I
on.
think you had a question, yeah?
I think you just went over it. My question
Okay.
was whether this is a strategic direction or whether you're actually uploading information. It sounds like you're doing the first
Oh, okay.
part.
Yeah.
And hoping to get private information. If you did take private information, would you be taking documents and things?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kind of like Gonzaga does?
Yep. There was a very, I haven't looked at them in like a year, but I know John and.
You can put all your documents.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
your
yeah.
notes, everything in
Yep.
the cloud.
Same kind of concept.
I think you were good first.
Oh, well, it's like, I know a lot of families that are like mine that really would prefer to do it the manual, hard copy way.
Yeah.
So do you have also then the reminders periodically of, look at it, update?
Yeah, no,
information, or
absolutely.
into
You can do
systems
those
to
with,
stay
whether it's
online with you
digital or
for guidance?
manual. And part of that was like, it was sort of an age decision too, right? It's like, I have friends that are like in their 60s who, they're like, I'm not putting that stuff online. They're like, there's no way, right? It's good. And then, so I was like, well, the people that are interested in putting it online are like younger than 40, right? So it's like, I better start on this end and like work the other direction.
All
So.
right, we got time for one more.
Have you thought about other markets and other marketing channels, like healthcare organizations or the quaintly called death and dying infrastructure, large funeral homes?
AARP.
Yeah, AARP.
Oh, yeah.
hospices.
I have tons of, the list, so I come from project management background, and one of my real strengths is that I can like sit down and like write really long lists of stuff. Right? And it's kind of like, that's what I do for a living, like, for money. And so like, when it comes to this stuff, I have really long lists, and it can be a strength and it can also be a weakness, right? Because
Yeah, okay.
when you have too many options, it just blow your mind.
Okay.
And I was telling my partner the other day, I was like, you know what, I'm like getting back into that blurry space, right? Where it's like, I don't know what to do next.
Yeah, it comes from aging.
Yeah, I know, I get it. I just turned
And
40.
one last comment from out of the galaxy. Believe it or not, there's a new occupation and certificates in the community colleges across the country called legicists. So you can actually be trained on how to do this. And
Yeah.
you could be a certified legicist.
I know, I should go and do that. That's a lot better than me trying to go to UC Davis and get a degree in law. It's cost my mind like a lot. Because I do love this stuff, and it's interesting to me, and it's great to have conversations with people about it. It's exciting.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Just a last comment that I love this because disrupt government, because if you don't do it, then the government's going to do it. And so if we can,
Yeah.
get into the place where we're doing that and take that away from them, they do it badly. It's forever.
Screw the man.
So. Laura, we trickle down, so we don't want that.
Yeah, the whole concept, it is about avoiding probate. And those, we talk about the 55% of people who haven't planned. If you don't do anything, you will fall into probate land, and the government will take care of it. And you will pay them for it.
Right.
Thank you, man. All right. Thanks.